Hello, everyone, and welcome once again to another episode of the Lending Podcast. We are your hosts. That's Jeff Jones,
Hello.
and I'm John Burnham. Thank you for being with us today. We're going to talk about renting versus buying, and we're going to crunch a ton of numbers. As you can see, we have papers out in front of us doing something a little different today, and this could go a couple different ways.
It's going to go really well. So, here in Austin, Texas, we get these questions all the time. Is it a good time to buy? And right now we're seeing it is a good buyer's market, even with rates higher than what people are used to. So
Loves.
we love providing good information for people to make good decisions. Part of that is numbers. So we're going to go through a bunch of numbers today. We're going to do our best to make them clear since you don't have the visuals that are in front of you, but we do. But just so people know, when we do, advice and consulting for people, we want to make sure they have good visuals as well. And so when we're doing rent versus buying, rent versus owning scenarios, we want to provide dynamic calculators that'll show the difference of where you're at compared to where you could be at if you own. And we're going to go through some of
We're
those
going to break
scenarios.
down. Yeah, let's break down kind
Yeah,
of
we got
three
three.
different price points. So what we decided to do is take a $300,000 buyer scenario,
Yeah,
a $400,000 buyer, and then a $500,000 buyer. And what we've done is obviously we've made some presumptions. Our clients come to us in various stages. Some of our clients are coming to us, they don't pay any rent right now, right? They're maybe living with a family member, or they're between places, or they're getting relocated from their job. They don't have a housing
right.
expense, so it's hard to calculate a rent versus buy calculator, right? We're just going to do some different math on that scenario, right? But if someone's paying $2,000 a month in rent right now, or $3,000 a month, or $4,000, whatever the rent is right now, we're going to compare that to what your payment's going to be if you buy at different price points and help you find the right price point for you, and then figure out what is your break even. How long do you need to hold the house to make buying right now make more sense than renting? Because there are some scenarios where renting might make more sense for you right now. It's possible.
Yeah,
Over time, though, I think everyone can agree with the appreciation and paying down your principal, building wealth through real estate is way better than continuing to rent. And so we're going to run through this math with you.
yeah.
All right. Should we dive into it?
I think we should. Let's lay some groundwork of what assumptions are being
Okay.
considered. I
Okay.
used to do forecasting for Geico,
All right. That's right.
so I was one of their analysts, and we always had to defend our assumptions
Oh,
so that people knew our numbers were true, or at least somewhat on par with
sure.
what they expect. So, I mean, do we want to go through kind of what each one is that we're going to
Let's do
talk
it.
about? Yeah,
Yeah. So for those of you that are listening on Apple Podcast or another podcast versus the YouTube channel here, we've got these worksheets in front of us. So let's just run through. So let's start with the $300,000 price point. Okay. So we're making a presumption of an interest rate of about 7.5%, which as of the time we're recording this is about the 30-year fixed average out there. Are there some lower rates out there? Of course. Are there some higher rates? Yes. We're taking the average of 7.5. So we're also using a 3% down payment. So whether you're a first-time buyer or
right.
you've bought a home before, there are ways that you can qualify for a down payment as low as 3%.
Hmm.
So we're using that presumption. That would be a conventional loan. If it was an FHA loan, it might be 3.5%, but give or take, we're using that about 3% down payment. Okay. And then we're estimating home insurance. Your homeowner's insurance is going to be about $2,000 a year, and we're estimating that your property taxes are going to be about 2%. So 2% of 300,000 is about $6,000 a year. So as we're going through the payment scenarios and the break even, we're
Right.
factoring in all the expenses of your home, and we're using a 1% annualized expense ratio for minor repairs and things that come up, because as a homeowner, you're going to have yard services, or your sprinkler system is going to need repair, or whatever it is. So we're factoring in some additional expenses for that as well, and homeowners association dues, minor homeowners association of $30 a month. So these are some of the presumptions that we're making at a $300,000 price point, and then comparing that to whether or not you're paying about $2,000 a month in rent right now. So this is a scenario where you're paying $2,000 in rent. You don't know if now's a good time to buy. We're looking at potentially doing a $300,000 sales price for you. And what have we found is our break even point? How many years is it going to take to make this make sense to buy a home at 300,000 if you're paying $2,000 in rent?
It's just going to take 2 years
2 years.
to break, not only break
That's
even,
amazing.
but actually start getting into the gains.
Financial gain at 2
Yeah.
years. And this is not considering any refinancing at all. This is presuming you're going to keep this
keeping the
loan
rate. Mm-hmm.
forever, right?
Yep.
Now, if we look down this chart in front of us is like an amortization schedule. So it shows paying down each month you pay your mortgage. Of course, you're paying your principal down, right? You get some tax advantages because you have
Right.
interest that is deducted, being able to be deducted. You also have property taxes that are able to be deducted up to $10,000 a year. And so with a 5-year window, you would be in the positive, in the green from a net worth perspective of $51,000. Your net worth in 5 years is $51,000 more in this scenario if you buy versus renting. And at 10 years, it's $170,000.
Yeah.
Because of the compound effect of home appreciation and the compound effect of your principal being reduced through your mortgage payments.
Yeah, and it's kind of like the old adage of you're going to pay somebody's mortgage, whether it's your landlord's or your own.
That's right.
Right? And the way to build wealth, one of the best ways is to live in a property you own.
That's right. So if you're thinking right now, I pay $2,000 a month in rent. I'm not sure if I can qualify for a home. And by the way, this 3% down payment, there's also down payment assistance programs to
Right.
help you get the 3% down. So
Yeah.
you don't even need the $9,000 necessarily
Right.
to put down. You might be eligible for a program that'll allow you to receive the down payment as a gift, and you still can build the same amount of wealth through real estate. And so a 10-year window, think about where you are now and you fast forward 10 years, would you like to be $170,000 net worth wealthier? Of course, everybody would.
Yeah.
And so that is really the fundamental comparison. Now, this is a $300,000 price point. Should we run through the 400 and the 500, or do anything else we want to talk about with the 300,000?
I just want people to know, like, when we talk about these numbers, there are some pretty big factors that make big changes to it. Some of them are going to be appreciation. So, like when I look at when I bought 5 years ago, and this one has a gain because my scenario was just like this. I had a similar price point, similar amount down, and so this net gain is a 51,000 gain. My house appreciated more than 5% year over year.
Right.
So because of that appreciation, my net gain right now is over $100,000 in 5 years, not 51.
Right. Double.
So the market change of appreciation can severely increase your gains or decrease, but I don't see appreciation moving too much lower.
Well, that's true.
than our
And
forecast.
so if we were talking off camera,
Yeah.
this is without refinancing. When rates go
Right.
down, you're going to have more demand
Right.
in the marketplace, more competition, more buyers means more competition, and that competition is going to lead to home appreciation as
Right.
prices go up and people are overbidding on homes. So this 5% appreciation is half of the
Yeah.
historical 5-year mark. For the last 5 years, it's been about 10% appreciation.
Right.
We're talking Central Texas. We understand across the country there may be some different rates of appreciation. Some may be more aggressive, some may be a little more conservative. We believe this number is conservative because Williamson County, which is just north of where we are right now, you got Williamson, Travis, and Hayes County kind of in that central Texas corridor. Their average has been 4% over the last 30 years. So we're talking about a 5% appreciation over the next 5 years, which we believe is conservative based on the data. And this is, again, with rates where they are.
Right.
So it's really interesting to kind of think about how this dynamic will shift when rates go down. And I think your appreciation on your home and mine as well is a direct result of those rates going down a few years ago.
It's a combo of the rates going down and a combo of appreciation going way up.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And of course, our line in the sand right now for the last 2 years has roughly been a 7%, give or take, interest rate. Some 6s, some 7s, but that's our line in the sand. When we get to say 4 or 5%, presuming we can get down there in the next couple of years, that delta is going to be the same kind of delta from 2018 when we went from 5% rates to 3% rates. Now we can go from 7.5 to 5.5. It's that same 2% reduction in rate. It's going to cause that same kind of stir in the market.
And when we were doing these calculators, it was the same calculator 2 years ago. The break even, instead of being in 2 years, was in one, because the rates were so much lower.
True.
Appreciation was around 6 at that time, 7. And so all this does is, even though we're in a much different rate environment, much different appreciation environment, it's still only 2 years.
That's right.
2 years to not only break even, but make, a gain of $4,700.
That's right. And
so that's a 300,000.
Yeah,
that's
and
good.
Every situation is different. Your break even might be 3 years because of your specific criteria. Someone else's break even might be 1 year. So the most important question we can ask is, how long do you plan on keeping this home? That's another thing. So if real estate for you is a short term window, that's a different conversation than, hey, I'm going to be in this house for the next 5 or 10 years, or your family dynamic has changed, or you have younger kids and you're going to be in a house for 15 years. These are all signs that point to, we got to get you in a home so you can start building wealth.
Yeah.
Right? So let's talk about the 400,000 scenario. These numbers are actually pretty similar. So when we went through this in 2 years, it was also a break even.
Yep.
So we also changed the rental payment on a monthly basis. So this $400,000 purchase, we compared to a buyer who's currently paying $2,500 a month in rent. So as that price point and rent payments goes up, so perhaps could that price point for your purchase go up as well. So this is a $400,000 purchase. We're still putting 3% down, which is $12,000. Again, there's down payment assistance available. If you don't have that down payment set aside, we upped the home insurance a little bit. We upped the property taxes because those are going to go up with the value of the home. So all of that elevates, still comes out with a $3,000 net gain after 2 years. So the break even is right about 24 months. In year 5, your net worth with the home is almost $60,000. It's just over $59,000. And in 10 years, it's $206,000.
Net. Yeah. That's
net gain. That's after you sold the home and after you're paying your closing costs to sell.
right.
Because we get that question a lot too. Like, what's it cost to sell? What's it cost to refinance? So a lot of those things are factored in here as well.
These are pretty robust calculators, and I want people to know, if they ever want a copy, leave a comment or contact us directly through our websites, and we'd be happy to connect with you and get you your personalized scenario that's catered directly to you.
Absolutely.
But we got one more.
Let's do the 500,000.
Okay.
So we made a couple of changes on the 500,000. We took the monthly rental payment to $3,500 a month. So if you're paying $3,500 a month in rent, we're putting you kind of in that $500,000 price point comparison in this regard. We also lowered the annual appreciation to 4% versus 5%. Some of the higher price homes may appreciate slightly less. It just depends on the market. We're making this presumption using kind of the average of the last 10 or 15 years. The 5-year gain is $76,000 in net worth. It is also a 2-year break even in this.
2-year break even again. So all 3 of them are 2-year break evens, which tells you that even with a 7.5 rate, as long as you're going to be a homeowner longer than 2 years, this totally makes sense.
That's right. The net worth gain after 10 years, if you buy a $500,000 house today, is $245,000. Compared to paying $3,500 a month in rent, you take the next 120 months as a homeowner in a $500,000 house. Of course, your home's going to appreciate. You're going to pay down the principal like we talked about. Your total net worth just on that home decision is up almost $250,000.
Yeah, and I think it's hard for a lot of people that haven't owned homes to fathom some of these large numbers of what a net gain is. Imagine, you put $500,000 in the market, stock markets, and all of a sudden in 10 years it made $245,000.
That's right.
For you, in a 10-year window. That's pretty sweet.
No, that's such a good point. Okay, so let's talk about that for a
second. But you're
second.
living in your stock.
Right? We didn't even plan to talk about this topic, but I'm gonna piggyback on that.
Okay.
Let's talk about the leverage that $15,000 can do for you. Okay.
Right.
So $15,000 or $25,000 if you put 5% down. When you leverage that money to buy a home, you're getting the appreciation on the entire value of the home.
That's good.
So if you put $15,000 down, right, or you put
Mm-hmm.
20, so you do 5% down, put $25,000 down, the appreciation rate is on the 500,000. You touched on a stock portfolio. You've got to have $500,000 in a stock portfolio to then get the 10% return, maybe $50,000 a year on your stock portfolio, compounded over 5 years is a little over $250,000. Here, you're taking $20,000 to $25,000 in cash and creating $250,000 in 10 years with that compound
No, that's a
effect.
very good reality because you're not taking $500,000 of your own money to invest.
That's
You're
right.
putting in a loan. The loan's paying off. You're paying interest and principal to pay that down. So all to say, like, even if it's a $300,000 home, trying to put that scenario into people's minds, right? Say you're only putting 3% down, and then you're paying basically your mortgage, right? So your principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. And then what that does is basically it's almost like imagine your scenario of renting, but it's making you $17,000 a year
Right.
when you own.
Right.
And
Right.
so it's almost like extra income in the future, right? So it's an investment into your future gain that you're going to get back. And then year 10, if it's 170 grand over 10 years, $17,000 a year on average is what you've been earning on your home.
Yeah, it's the compound effect is incredible.
Yeah.
And then of course we can run this out 15, 20 years. The numbers kind of get silly when you really
Right.
go out there. But a 5 year window, and we talked about this, a
Yeah.
5 to 7 year window is a window where most of our clients can see that far into the future. 3, 5,
Right.
7 years. Let's not talk about 15, 20, 30 years from now. Most of our clients are not going to make 360 payments. Like we know that.
Right.
You're probably not going to keep this house forever. And the nice thing about capital gains and the lack of capital gains, if you will,
Right.
when you have a primary residence that you live in for 2 years, per the IRS tax code, if you're a single borrower, you can sell your home and make up to $250,000 tax free based on the basis of your purchase. So you buy a $500,000 house, you sell for $750,000, and you've lived there as an owner occupant.
Mm-hmm.
You can literally take that $250,000 tax free, put it into your next investment, do whatever you want with it.
Mm-hmm.
As a married couple, it's up to $500,000. So your gains on your owner occupied real estate are tax free up to these certain levels. $250,000 for an individual, $500,000 for a married couple. That's $500,000 tax free through an investment that you leveraged with maybe $10,000 or $15,000, $20,000 initially.
That's amazing.
That's amazing.
That's amazing. So people ask me, does it make sense to buy now? And I say, as long as you're in the house for at least 2 years, it does.
That's right.
Which, why wouldn't you be?
Right.
Unless you're going to move,
Right.
right? So as long as you're not moving out of the area, it makes sense.
And then those are also conversations we have because perhaps the strategy is I want to buy a house now because I want to start my real estate portfolio. I know that I'm not going to be in this house forever, but I may want to move out and rent the home. Let's have that conversation. Again, it might not make sense. It may make sense. We've got to run the numbers. We are big on running the math and leaving the emotion out of the decision. Real estate is emotional to some degree. Like you walk into a home and it's you can see yourself here, you can see you're raising your family here, and a lot of times that part of the process is emotional. The numbers, though, the tactical side of our business is unemotional. Making good sound financial decisions should not be emotional. It should be very tactical, and that's what we love to do here. And then provide those numbers and give our clients the education to make good decisions.
I liked this episode.
Same.
So
well, we've never had 20 pieces of paper out.
Yeah, it's our first time. We're like, do we really put paper in front of us? I'm like, yes, we need paper.
Why not?
So
I don't want to have to memorize all these numbers, right? They're all written down in front of me.
Well, I'm going to close this out.
Let's do it.
Thank you so much for listening to us today at the Lending Podcast with JB and myself. We appreciate you. Please like, share, and subscribe. And if you want one of these scenarios for yourself, we'd be happy to create and customize one for you.
Take care.
Take
We're
care.
good. Talk to you soon.
Bye.